Welcome back to the All-Purpose Pod for an all-purpose life, wherever you are today and however you are listening to the Call Me Mr. You, the podcast, and Football Talk with Bo. Thank you for making us a part of your morning, your day, and your week. We're your weekly mirror check before you go change the world. Of course, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the Twitter. Download, subscribe to our show wherever you enjoy your podcast. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate them. Our guest host is back, Bo's back in the building. What's up, man?
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm ready too. It was a long night last night. I'm ready. Happy Juneteenth to everybody that's celebrating today. Hope you guys are safe where you are and in the right frame of mind. So it's an awesome day and it's an awesome opportunity to remember some great things about our country. So hope you guys are enjoying that time together with family and friends. All right, Bo, you ready, man?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Well, before we get into our show, I want to go ahead and tell you about my little strange Mr. You moment. I had those quite frequently. Yesterday, we were in, my team, #RepBX. You know how we do. We were actually in a double-header, second and third game of a 3-game series against the Boston Red Sox. There's not really much of a rivalry there these days, but it felt like it yesterday and the day before. Well, the day before that, because it was a rain delay on Saturday, I think it was. On Friday. Yeah, Saturday. Anyways, we got hammered. That big green monster was the death of us. And I don't know if it's just a thing when it comes to I have issues with situational hitting. I got issues with some of the pitching. We probably got 2 or 3 guys that can actually get to 6 innings and beyond, which is not a good thing. Excuse me. But it caused me to reminisce about the good old days. And ask myself that question now. Okay, are the good old days really that good? For RepBX, yes, because we had a total of 27 world championships. So yeah, the good old days were actually good. We were actually dominant. Say what you want, call us the evil empire, however you want to phrase it. But the bottom line was that we were dominant. So it's not hard to look back at the good old days in that respect. Because you know what, we were winning, and we were winning at a high clip. This past few days, not so much. I think we're third in the division. We got a winning record, but it's not a good look to get shelled like that. You know, 15 to 5 the first night. Ooh, it was. That's not good. You know what I'm saying? Especially when your big dog is on the mound. It's not a good thing. So looking back at the good old days, it's a normal part of our experience. We go back to the good old days because we think it's better than, but in most cases, outside of the Yankees, is it actually a good thing to go back in time and look at the old days and reminisce about those times? I don't know. But we got some questions going on our social media platforms. 2 questions.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it's good.
Sometimes it's good. Because especially when it comes to sports, right? Because you have a measurable reason why it could be better.
Okay. I like that for sports, but beside that, should we be doing that?
I mean, probably not.
You know, we're gonna talk about it a little bit during the show, but I'm just starting to wonder if there's a little bit of too much us in that whole conversation. As the reason why we look back at the good times and not, or the so-called good old days, and we see even in the political realm, which we ain't touching on this show ever, but people talk about the good old days when America was doing this and that. I'm like, okay, some stuff I can understand, but it's like, was it really good old days? I mean, were the days really that good back then? Because there was a lot of bad stuff happening back then too. So I'm like,
exactly, yeah, like there were elements that were good, but that I wouldn't say that any time during our history is that like pinnacle moment where you're like, oh, that's when it was awesome. I mean, there was a lot of bad stuff along the way. Like again, there are elements that were probably better in ways, but yeah, I don't know that there's ever been a spot in history where like, oh, those were the good old days, really.
Yeah, some people are saying that, and they're on my Twitter page. Somehow they made it on my Twitter timeline, but they're saying that kind of stuff. I'm like, is it really that good? You sure?
Yeah.
want some time to think it over? But we got a couple of poll questions that we threw out, Bo and I, on our social media platforms. Hope you guys caught that. But just to recap, and we'll do that throughout the course of the episode today. Number one, what's the trend in the 80s or the 90s, both eras, that you miss? You'd love to see it come back. It could be bell bottoms, it could be certain kind of hairstyles, maybe it's certain kind of clothes, maybe it's combat boots. I don't know what it is, but what's the trend in the 80s and the 90s you'd love to have come back that you actually miss? Second question, what's the greatest era in sports and why? This is always a fiery topic / debate, because we sit here in 2023, we look back in the 80s and say, oh man, that was the best time in sports because blank, blank, blank happened. So what are your thoughts on our two poll questions? Number one, what's the trends in the 80s and the 90s that you missed, you'd love to have come back? And the second question, what's the greatest era in sports and why? It's already flowing around on our social media platform, but I don't think we can check Twitter right now. So if you can, jump into our link for live YouTube comments. Let us know your thoughts there. And if we can, we will share them on the air this morning. All right, so how do we decide these topics? How do we decide these answers to these questions? I mean, do you view the good old days through the lens of what you personally like, or what benefits everyone? What's a greater, wider benefit? How do we decide what's the greatest area in sports? What's the greatest trend? How do we figure that out?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably something that you liked, right? It's,
okay.
I mean, because you can't really speak to what everyone was feeling at any given time, right? So, I mean, it has to be your own personal bias to some degree.
Okay, good.
You know, and like when it comes to sports, there will be, for me, especially because I was a defensive guy, I like hits, right? Like when it comes to football, like I like contact. And so, you know, do I like eras prior to the current one a little more? On the defensive side of the ball, absolutely, right? Because you're not allowed to hit people anymore. In fact, when guys catch the ball across the middle, you know, it used to be you were afraid. You had a Ray Lewis or someone like that was going to come and declinch you and probably, you know, have to have your teammates visit you in the hospital. And now they have to let you catch the ball or you get a fine and a flag, right? So they're taking physicality out of the game in a game that's designed to be physical. And they did similar things to basketball, right? Like you used to be able to play a little bit more aggressive defense. You know, they always talk about the hand checking, but that wasn't actually the most physical part of that defense. Like when you watched those Pistons teams or, you know, Patrick Ewing's Knicks, like they came and beat you up.
Yes, baby. Oh, now you're talking now. Now I'm awake.
Right. And I mean, hand checking was the least physical thing they were doing. Like Patrick Ewing would bump you into the stands.
I love that man. My number one Nick of all time. I don't care what you say. That finger roll still haunts me to this day, but I don't care. That's my number one guy.
Nah, he was a beast.
Number one guy.
He was a beast. Absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, it comes down to personal preference, right? You know, some people say that today's game is the best because you have the most skilled shooter. And I mean, we don't even know if we do really. Like guys back then could hit shots. They were just getting beat up on their way to the basket.
Somebody actually said that this current NFL product is the best.
No, NBA. NBA. Because they have.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, well, they're making that comparison because there's the most skilled shooters because you have tall guys that are shooting from the perimeter, and you got Curry that knocks down 1,000 3-pointers a game. But the thing is there's no defense comparatively anymore.
We're gonna talk about that.
So, I mean, imagine how many Larry Bird would have had if there was an emphasis on threes and he didn't get beat up and thrown to the floor constantly.
We're gonna talk about that. put a pin in that one. We're gonna come back to that. That right there, that's an issue for me. So we're gonna definitely come back to that one. I got it's already actually in my in my to-do list over here. So but yeah, that's a challenge. So okay, so personal bias does play a part. So how do we actually come to any kind of agreement? Is it even possible?
I don't think there is. I think it's similar to the. I think it completely mirrors the Michael Jordan versus LeBron debate. Which one's the GOAT? It's whichever one you liked the style of play better, right? Because you can make the argument for LeBron, Michael Jordan 6 for 6, whatever, right? And the people that are LeBron side, they can make the argument statistical category. You can get free. Now, I'm a Michael Jordan fan. I respect LeBron's game, but I liked the physicality and just like the determination of I want the ball. We're gonna win. I like that. I like that mentality versus he was just a different style player. LeBron was.
That's just part of it. That's just part of it, bro. There's so much more that goes into this thing.
But why I make the comparison?
Only guy on the team, really, that was really like. I mean, he would score like 60-something points routinely. I mean, he was not on a so-called super team.
No, never was. But
and they played harder, man. I mean, we talked about it on a couple of episodes previously, but I think we maybe have time to touch it today. But it was a whole different level of physicality, like you said. It was different, man.
But why I make that comparison is whether you're an MJ fan or a LeBron fan, nothing anybody says is going to sway you to the other side.
I know that's right.
And so whatever your thought of the best era, like you're never going to sway anybody if they have a best era in their mind, because it's what resonates with them. So they may understand your perspective, but I don't think you're ever going to move anybody from that spot. So I don't think you really I don't think you get everybody to agree on an era, so to speak.
Okay. I mean, based on what you said with the personal bias factor, I don't know how we do that. But one thing I want to ask, it's not really a poll question, just a thought. Does that limit does that mindset limit our ability to appreciate what's happening right now? Because I know myself, I go back a little bit because I'm just being honest about it. I do go back a little bit, especially when it comes to sports. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I'm wondering to myself, this is just me talking about me, not anybody else. I wonder if I'm missing something right now that's historic. I mean, I want an announcer to tell me it's historic and make me pay attention to it, but am I actually missing something right now that's like, unprecedented? The whole LeBron GOAT thing, that's a whole different convo. I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about just in general. Am I missing anything that really is like, wow, this is unheard of. This is a dynasty. I want my head in the clouds in the past so much that I just missed that. And I think as a whole, we do that, not just in sports, but just in life.
For sure.
TV show, I don't care what it is. If we're talking 80s, 90s trends, I think we missed that part. And we don't appreciate what we have going on right now. That's pretty awesome because we're so busy talking about the good old days. So,
well, I mean, to your point there, I think that's why you end up with prime example. You always end up with like your grandparents and stuff. They're like, music today sucks, and I think by that, right? They like their music from when they were realistically high school into their 20s, like, and everybody kind of gravitates towards that kind of era of music you grew up with. Like for me, I liked hip hop from the late 80s, early 90s, Dre, Pac, right? Like that's my jam, right? So when I listen to mumble rap and stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God, this. Right?
What did he say? Who's he talking about?
Yeah. So, but if you have, kids growing up today, that's going to be their jam when they're older. Right. And which is, it's weird to me, but when you think of when you think of like our era, when we get to that age where you're into the nursing home, mentally, it seems hilarious because you're going to have grandma listening to Eminem and Dre with tats, right? Because most of our era has a bunch of tats. So you're going to have this 85-year-old grandma listening to Eminem with tats on. And that is a hilarious mental image to me.
That is a very disturbing image to me. But yeah, I mean, I get that though, man. I don't know. Is sports more exciting now than it was then? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, is politics worse now than it was 30 years ago? Are the TV programs better or worse now? I mean, right now it comes down to you want to watch Golden Girls or the Real Housewives of whatever. I mean, this is the choices that we have to make right here. You want to go back and watch reruns or something that we actually like, or this new thing that I don't. TV right now is bad to me. I mean, for the most part, there's some good thing that kind of rise above the top of the rest of them, but as a whole, it's not great. I enjoyed the other stuff a lot better, but I can't go back and look at it now though. So it's like, wow, so it's a weird dichotomy going on.
Yeah.
But what you said was about recency. Well, you didn't say that, but you were implying about recency bias. That we think we're living in the best era. I think that's a big part of this too, because the arguments I don't have arguments with people. I have discussions with people who are maybe in that millennial group or Gen X or whatever, and they think this era is the best. They think everything that's going on is the best. I'm like, you don't understand. It's all cyclical. It's been around before. It just came back.
Yep.
You just happen to be here when that happened. It's not. It doesn't mean that this is the best time era in life. I mean, there's so many things that we've seen when it comes to freedom and liberty in the country, or whether it be sports, or whether it be entertainment, music. I mean, songs you can actually that are intelligible. You can understand what they're actually saying. I mean, I ain't going to pick Frankie Valli over New Edition either. But I mean, I'm just saying I prefer certain things, So I get it, but I think this thought process seeps out into sports most times, more often than not. I mean, like here's a thought, just something to just kind of consider. What if you had a really important sports highlight? Just envision whatever that is for you. Sure. Really, if it's your team's World Series win, or maybe a Super Bowl win for your favorite football team, whatever it is, and that happened during the very worst time of your life. You were going through a hell. Sure. But then your team won a Super Bowl, they won a championship, or they won a natty, whatever. Does that make it the best era ever because that happened for your team and it took your attention off what you were dealing with? I mean, I think our bias plays a part in these discussions. That's why we have these talks on Twitter, and especially Twitter more than anybody else, anywhere else.
Yes.
I take that into account. I'm like, okay, so why are you saying that? I asked an additional question, and usually I find out that there's a bias to why you asked that, or why you said this was the best era possible, whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there always is. Like, there's a bias in anything you do, right? Because at the end of the day, you can try and be as objective and open as you can, but your experiences are whatever they are, right? So everything you do in your life is built on whatever experience you've had up to that point, whether they're good or bad, or in any given situation. Bias of what you've experienced plays a huge role in however you deal with a situation, or what it is you think the outcome of a situation should be. So you really can't get around some of your own biases, even though they're probably not even intentional. You just have experienced what you've experienced.
Absolutely. A buddy of mine, he dropped a video post this morning on Twitter. I think it was the 2017 NFC Championship game. I think it was the Giants against San Fran. And then just showing Eli. His caption was that Eli was just unflappable, I think was the word he used, and that Victor Cruz was unguardable. That's the term that he used. And he showed like about 5 or 6 clips of that game. I'm like, my goodness, that's exactly what I'm seeing. But it took me back to some really good times. I really enjoyed that so much. I'm like, wow, this is the way I think football should be played, And it was just like, just being smart, man, taking the smart passes and taking shots down the field when you got it, and just I saw that in those clips, and it just made me all happy and warm and fuzzy on the inside. I'm like, wow, that was like 6 years ago, but it made me feel so good. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. This is great. That's part of my view of the eras, and like, okay, that time was a great time. Well, because my team won something major, went to the pinnacle, but it was good for some other reasons as well. But I mean, those are the kind of things that kind of factor in factor into your decision making about what's the best era. But
for sure. So to dovetail on that a little bit, do you think your guy Eli is a Hall of Famer if he doesn't win those 2 rings? Because
without question,
yeah,
without the rings. Oh, hold on,
let
me finish the question first.
Because
without the rings.
With the rings, obviously he gets in, but without the rings,
okay.
His stats are very average.
Fair. I agree with that.
So
I never said that he was never a Hall of Famer without it. There's records that he broken with the team.
Sure.
That I think would put him at the very least in the Giants Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, Ring of Honor and stuff for sure, right? Because he was there for the whole time, and I mean, he set all of the franchise records. So him being in their Ring of Honor and everything, of course. But based on his stats, if he doesn't get those 2 rings, I don't feel like he would be in the Hall of Fame. He'd be in the Hall of Very Good, maybe above average, right? But the Hall of Fame, no way. But with the rings,
I'm going to fight today because I get why you're saying that.
But with the rings, especially dismantling a juggernaut of a Patriots team that was undefeated up until that point. Honestly, if that was the only ring he got, he'd get into the Hall just for that ring alone.
Yeah.
Because at that point in the Patriots, dynastic run, everybody hated them at that point. So, so that's one of those, and of course, to get in is a voting game. So it's not based on stats. It's based on, whoever's voting and how they feel about it. And everybody was like, we want the Patriots to lose. And for them to come in and do that, that would get him in all on its own.
That's real stuff right there. I mean, I know that the rings play a part. I look at the numbers, even in the Super Bowls, even in the playoff runs. Not a lot of passing yards, but I think I understand why. And I'm trying not to be biased. Hopefully, I'm not being biased. I'm trying to be just objective about it. The way that they play football back in that time, that particular team, the New York Football Giants, baby. The way they play football it was about defense and being hard nosed on the line and stuff. It wasn't really airway type of offense.
You had Strahan coming in to just hurt people.
Right. I mean, that's what they were doing. So they weren't really expecting him to throw it like a Justin Herbert would. If he stayed with the Chargers, the way the Chargers do business from a wide receiver standpoint, he probably would have guys out there that will make him a 4,000 or 5,000 yard passer. He might be having a different conversation right now, but because he was in New York, the way they play hard, because New York is a hard-nosed city, so they play hard-nosed ball. That's just how it works. So I think that there was really no chance of him doing it unless there was no running game, which they had an awesome running game. So because Thunder and Lightning were amazing, and they helped Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs for those who are not so inclined. But they were the thing I give Eli a ton of credit for is, although his regular seasons weren't amazing, he was probably the most clutch postseason guy. Like, he found ways to win in the postseason. So he's not number one. He's up there because that's what I mean. Like he can hate on what he want to, but he was a different player regular season to postseason. Because regular season, you're just like, man, like, he's okay, I guess. And then of course you're comparing him to his brother, who is one of the best. But it just happens, right? Yeah. But and of course Peyton's one of the best to ever do it. So that's a tough comparison to be up against all the time. But same amount of championships, though. Same amount of championships. And he was able to do it in one spot. So but once he got into the playoffs, he elevated his game, and that's what you want to see out of your quarterback. Yeah. Does he get to that next level when he gets there? And I mean, at the end of the day, if you get into the playoffs, it doesn't matter how you got there. You just got to be able to win 4 games once you do. Absolutely, man. Hey, I can talk about the Giants all day long. That's where my heart is. But as long as he was on the Giants, I just don't see how that would have happened. And to tell you the truth, and we kind of going down a rabbit hole, but it's a good one. I don't mind doing that because it's our show. We do what we want, right?
Yep.
But the same thing applies to Daniel Jones. All the folks that are listening, that are Giants fans, if you're down with Together Blue and you feel like Daniel Jones is supposed to be this quarterback that's unlike what Eli was, just forget about that part. Daniel Jones is really talented, very, very athletic. He can move in the pocket. He's a threat to run at any moment. He got an arm on him. He's fairly accurate with it as well. He's probably going to throw more, hopefully, maybe more passing yards than Eli did, maybe, before it's all said and done, I guess. But, I mean, in that offense, what are we emphasizing? We're emphasizing the run. That's why Saquon's such a hot topic right now, because we emphasize on the run. We've always done that. That's not even a new thing. We always done it. Anytime that we didn't do it, it was to our detriment. We always do that. So we don't need Daniel Jones to be a 5,000-yard passer. I mean, I've seen people who in different teams. I won't name other teams. I don't want to offend anybody. I'm saying like the Chargers and stuff like that. These guys, they throw 4 or 5,000 yards. Like, you think that's good? Is it? Look at the end result.
I like
you didn't win anything.
I like a balanced offense because
you're a smart thinker. Of course, you want a balanced offense. If you have one thing if you want to do one thing well, the team that's opposing you, they got less work to do.
Well, one of the worst things with offenses that have 5,000 yards and stuff is usually it's because their defense is atrocious and they have to be throwing the ball all the time because they're trying to stay in a game. I mean, the Detroit Lions from last year is a prime example of that. They were throwing the rock to the field because they couldn't stop anything. So of course you're not running the ball an insane amount because you're having, 80-point shootouts with like the Seahawks. I mean, it's they were a top 5 scoring offense last year for most of the year. But they had the worst defense in the league. So of course, Goff had a ton of passing yards. They were behind all the time. They had to.
Exactly. And that's not, I'm pretty sure that's not what they brought Jared Goff in there for. But I mean,
but he did it like the champ, so I can't hate on him for it. But man, like
I mean, you're right though. If Eli didn't have those rings, those numbers ain't going to match up to what's already out there and stuff. So that was a big deal. But the clutch part, that's the part that I lean on, because when you do it when it counts, that's what matters, and you should get extra credit for that.
Well, and that's why he gets in, right? Because at the end of the day, the Hall of Fame is a voting game, right? Because if it was based on sheer stats, he probably doesn't get in. But because of the rings and the fact that it is a voting situation, he'll easily get in. I don't think he'll be a first ballot, but he'll get in.
That's the Hall of Fame thing. That's a whole different topic. Maybe tackle that one on a different show. That's a rough one, because look at those numbers of people who get in. Mm-hmm. Their numbers aren't dramatically different than the person who doesn't get in.
Exactly.
So I don't know how they even figure that thing out.
It's popular.
I know that's with the Eli thing, that needs to happen. I don't care what was happening before. That needs to happen. And
so he'll get in.
I was going to say even first ballot, because I think that needs to happen.
Well, I mean, it'll be the same reason that T.O. wasn't a first ballot, right? It's a voting game. So it's however, because when you look at his stats, that's a first ballot Hall of Famer, hands down. But he didn't get there because he had weird off the field stuff and people felt a certain way about him, right?
That because time in Cincinnati sure helped.
Yeah, but I mean, if you looked at sheer stats, like that's a no question. Like he's in, right? But because of off the field stuff and the fact that it's a voting game and people feel a certain way about T.O., that's why he wasn't a first ballot. So it's one of the things that I never like about, really any of the awards is they're all subjective, whether it's an MVP or whatever. It's a subjective award. Getting into the hall is, obviously stats play a role, just like, stats play a role in the MVP or anything like that. But at the end of the day, actually getting in, it's a voting game. So that's if people like you.
Facts. I think our next topic is going to be subjective as well. But I just went down the Giants and Hall of Fame rabbit hole, and it felt so good, baby. I love it. Here's our poll question for today. Number one, what's the trend in the 80s and 90s that you missed that you'd love to have come back? What's the trend in the 90s and the 80s that you would love to have come back that you actually missed? And secondly, what's the greatest era in sports and why? We have these questions up on our social media platforms even after the show, so you guys can chime in. For those who were scared to come on today, you can chime in on Twitter where it's safe, okay? But yeah, we have arguments about the GOATs all the time. I think that's probably another subjective topic. Who's the GOAT or greatest of all time? I had a little list that I found for all the sports and who they said the GOAT was. I'm gonna read them out to you. Tell me what you think about these. So in boxing, Muhammad Ali. In hockey, Wayne Gretzky, the great one.
Yep.
Baseball, Babe Ruth. Kind of surprised by that one. Football, TB12, obviously, Tom Brady. Soccer, Lionel Messi. I don't know much about soccer. I'm learning soccer, but just trying to get up with that a little bit. Tennis, it said Rafael Nadal.
Okay.
Or is Roger Federer the greatest to pick up a racket? So I'm not quite sure about that one, but basketball, obviously, they said MJ. Which one do you like or do you totally hate?
I mean, those are all solid answers. Like
they are. Okay.
You can
like Babe Ruth in baseball at the greatest.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if Babe Ruth is. He was the original, right? So I feel like that's where he gets to kind of retain that crown because he is the original to dominate the game, and you know, you have such a long history with baseball that you know, I definitely get why people say that. But I mean, you got guys out there like Cal Ripken Jr. who, I mean, he changed positions. He did everything you could possibly ever do. Probably one of the greatest players ever. And then longevity, most, you know, starts in a row. I mean, like there's so many different factors that, you know, it depends on what it is you are talking about, right? Like if you want to go with best power, right? Because that was some of Babe Ruth's thing. Then if you don't care about the steroid era, then you have to look at guys like Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds. And of course, Barry Bonds, even before he got caught up in roids, like, tell me what his out pitch was. Yeah, the dude didn't have one. Like he could hit anything that the stitches crossed the plate. So, I mean, that one I feel like is way more subjective just because of how long the sport has been around, that you could make cases for different guys depending on what it is you are basing that on. But if you're just going with the original to dominate the sport, yeah, it has to be Babe Ruth, right?
Okay. So is that the main one that you have a issue with, the baseball one?
No, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. Like I would probably.
Yes, you do.
No. I'd probably also lean towards Babe Ruth, honestly. But
you would.
Okay. Yeah, probably. But I'm just saying that there are a lot of guys along the way that, depending on what it is you are looking for out of that greatest ever, because there's a lot of positions to kind of play around with. But no, I mean, I would probably lean towards Babe Ruth also because, you know, at the end of the day, he dominated the sport in a way that hasn't been since. And some of that's just because the game has changed over time.
I think that tennis one might be one for debate too. I don't think we debate that on this show here, but I think Roger Federer has to be in that conversation. Novak Djokovic, I think he might be in there too. I mean, I don't think it's a slam hands down. Nadal is the greatest of all time. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, Federer would be a very real competition in that conversation. The women's side, there's no debate.
And we know, okay, so who you like there? You gonna say Martina?
Oh, Williams, obviously.
Oh, that's what that was a test. You passed. Okay.
I mean,
and we know what that is.
Nobody dominated the way she dominated.
Copy that. No one. So basketball, same thing as MJ and LeBron over and over. But I want to stay there just for a little hot second, because I mean, how do you differentiate between who's the best and who's not? I had this argument with people, and this time these were arguments. Actually, you weren't even debates anymore. It was actually flat out arguments. Like, the two situations are. I wish they could say they were apples and oranges.
Sure.
That, well, they are, but I wish they could say they were apples and apples, but they're not. They were so different. LeBron had more time as far as number of games, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he had more games played than Jordan did. But
sure.
Look what Jordan did with the amount of games that he played, which was less. How many championships? If he didn't retire, I think it was 2018. If he didn't retire, he might have had 3 more. I mean,
it's 2 more for sure.
It's right? A very strong possibility. So LeBron had more time, but did less with it. Went to super team, which is something that is a criticism that people keep on talking about.
I mean,
how do you differentiate between which one of these guys are the best? I mean, all-time records, playoff efficiency, shooting percent. I mean, what are we using as a measuring stick? Is it just championships?
Well, that argument always comes down to the rings won, because if you're going with who was able to accomplish more, now Jordan has more individual accolades, right? He had Defensive Player of the Year and some other things that LeBron never achieved, but you can't really say LeBron did less with it, because he did go to 9 finals, right? He only won 4, but he went to 8 in a row with different teams. I mean, that is unprecedented, right? So you can't really say that he underachieved. I mean, he was in the finals all the time.
All right, but hold on, Bo.
But they were on super teams. They were fabricated teams.
Yes, I'm getting ready to take it. We got to go down today. Since you started that, we got to finish that. How many different teams you said? You said 4?
What's that?
4 different teams, right?
Well,
Cavs, Heat, Lakers,
the Cavs twice.
Cavs right? A 4th time, right?
Yeah. So, and he built his own teams, right? So, like, I don't like the way he won championships because I grew up.
He built his own teams.
What's that?
He built his own teams. That's what you said.
LeBron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he built the Miami Heat. Do you?
I mean,
I don't think
he got recruited over there to become part of it.
That team was already kind of had talent already.
Well, yeah, because Dwayne Wade won a championship there already. Won a final.
Chris Bosh. I mean, they already had something going on. They just added him to it.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like he came into super teams, right? So I don't necessarily love the way he won, but I also didn't like the move for Durant to go win a ring and over at the Warriors.
Yeah, nobody does, man.
I just don't like the feel of that, right? Like
nobody like that.
And it has nothing to do with not wanting someone to win a ring. Like, yeah, we want you to win. You want there to be the struggle you want the championship to mean something, right? Like you want to build something into a championship team, not, we're just going to assemble the thing, win a ring, bounce out, call it a day. Like, I don't know. There's something that cheapens that ring.
Great word. Great word.
Cheapen. And that's why I look at it as, not all rings are constructed equally, right? I mean, because when you look at like Tim Duncan, right? They won every other year, basically, right? He ended up with 5 rings, I think. But that team was a really smartly put together team, and they just battled. And they were even a quiet team about it, right? You never heard anything about them. And, so I like that type of stuff. Or like Jordan, right? He struggled for years before they finally had the pieces in place to pop, right?
Yep.
So
5 rings. That's right. It's 5 rings.
5 rings. Yeah.
Same team.
So and that's how you expect championships to come, right? Or like the team I was on, we won a championship. We were not always good. We had some bad years prior to that season, but we were building something over time, and then it had to pay off at the end. And it makes that ring feel more important than if you just like jumped on a team and you won a ring and you're like, cool, right? Like there's something different. You appreciate it more with the struggle leading up to it, as opposed to, hey, we're just going to basically build an all-star team and beat up on the league.
That's okay. Let's touch on both things real quick. Tim Duncan, that's correct. It is 5 rings with the same team.
Yep.
98, 99, 2002, 2003, and 2004, 2005 team, I think it was. So it's amazing how I never hear his name in the discussion. Sure. 5 rings with the same team.
Yep.
Just one away from what MJ had, and you hardly ever hear his name. All I hear is LeBron.
Yep.
And I ain't got nothing against LeBron, just to be honest. I mean, people are gonna probably hammer me about it. They won't do it here while we can talk about it, but they do it when we get offline.
Yeah, Twitter. Of
course. But there's a problem with that for me, because I don't like the idea that, you know what, you stack some teams to help you do it, quote unquote, easy. I know it's not easy to win a championship. I get that part. I hear that. You know what I'm saying? But you kind of stack the deck a little bit in your favor by doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't get good players, but you go and try to get a group of superstars, and like what you said, a dream team. It's like it just feels different. I'm not saying make it hard on yourself so that you can have a greater glory. That's not really what I'm implying. But all of the championship stories that you see on documentaries and those shows that highlight championship eras and dynasties, doesn't it feel a little different in here, a little bit more valid and solid in here in the heart?
Well, yeah,
guys go through struggle and challenges, and they rise above them, and they still win despite issues on the team. I mean, those times I heard about the Bulls and stuff dealing with Robin and that kind of stuff, and they still won championships. Yep. That's not my team, but I felt something like, wow, these guys risen above adversity, and they did that. I mean, they had a super team, and everybody on the team was 30-point scorers and stuff. It's like it wouldn't be the same. They had guys who were role players that knew their role. In most cases, played their role to perfection. Yeah, Jordan was the star, and he should have been, But it meant something that they went all the way to the top of the mountain 6 times on the same team. I think Duncan needs to get a whole bunch more credit than we'll be giving him right now. And by we, I don't mean me and you.
Yeah,
I respect somebody who gets 5 rings with the same team.
And he doesn't because he's so quiet. He just came. He came to
work for him. He don't have to talk.
No, for sure. But
like, talk either.
He just came to work, did his thing and left. And I mean, unfortunately for him, that I mean, maybe he doesn't care, but at the end of the day, like he should be further up that NBA top 75 whatever list than he is, because he was that focal point on those teams, and they were consistent year in and year out. Because even in those years that they didn't win, they were right there.
This is the weird combo. I think we need to make a note that we need to talk about this. Write this down, man. We got to talk about this again. We have to, because I don't think I'm done with that, but I want to move along. But again, just think about it. LeBron doesn't have as many as Tim Duncan, and he moved around.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have as many. He doesn't have as many as Kobe either.
People think it's easy, and I'm not a former NBA basketball player. I'm not trying to pretend to be that. People think it's easy to go and play 82 games every year and win a championship. You think it's easy? That's not easy. It clearly is not. It's not easy at all. You know what I'm saying? But this man, he has 4 rings with the different teams. I'm sure that's great. Has scoring titles and that kind of stuff. But what Duncan did to me personally, is more commendable.
Sure.
Because he stayed where he is, where he was. And you know how it is after every year. Players want more money.
Yep.
Free agency kicks in. Everybody want to hit the market and see how much they can make. Maybe they lack loyalty in some regards to their former team, and they want to go with lights are brighter, whatever it is. But these guys essentially stayed together.
Yeah, they
5 rings. They didn't do a whole lot of moving around. There wasn't a whole lot of pieces that people just kind of getting replaced. I remember this somewhat. So I said, I've got to have a future show to talk about this, because I remember this, but I want to dig into it more. But I think most of the team was of the same constitution.
Yeah, it was for
the most part
attacked. Yeah, it was mostly
part at the culture. I mean, they didn't change a whole lot of things, and they won 5 rings. That means something to me, man. But
yeah, no, it's impressive. It's impressive, and that's why I think that guys like Duncan, who weren't flashy, didn't talk a lot, weren't in the limelight constantly. I feel like they get slighted almost because they weren't in your face all the time, despite awesome talent and incredibly consistent play. And we're, in the championship conversation for a decade.
And he didn't call himself king. Let's go ahead and move on.
See,
we got to come back to that. We got to come back to that.
Like that's probably
I want to come back to that. David Robinson. Shout out to David Robinson, man. That man was incredible. He was a fantastic NBA player, man. He was a big part of that too. So shout out to him as well, man.
Well, yeah, because he won a ring before Duncan got there, right?
Yeah. He was holding it down. He was. I mean, and this is what ticks me off about the NBA in this time. This is what one time we should be reminiscing a lot more, because those kind of names, we should be hearing them a lot more. Tell me why I'm hearing names like LeBron and Lemon Pepper Lou. Why am I hearing these names like this? Why am I hearing this? This should not be the symbols of the NBA. Talking about Russell Westbrook. I mean, no offense to these guys, man. They play ball, man, and do it at a high level. That's fine. But why am I think in that regard, I'd rather stay in the past. I don't want to come here. This is what I got to be listening to. This is not.
There's things that I can appreciate, especially about a guy like Westbrook. Now, I wouldn't want him on my team, but I can appreciate just his sheer intensity for the sport. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone who plays harder than him. It would probably be better if he better and shot better, but I mean, ain't nobody play harder than that dude.
Is there a prize for that?
Yeah. How many those triple doubles ever, I guess. But because what he averaged.
I'm sorry I even said his name on this show.
No, I mean, I can appreciate, like, again, I wouldn't want him on my team because he doesn't help you win, but he was exciting to watch.
I mean, it's just I ain't trying to pick on him. It's not even, that wouldn't really make my point at all. I think it just, when I think about James Harden and Anthony Davis, I'm like,
no. So AD is frustrating.
I'm like, this is it.
Yeah, no.
The things I see, this is me. The things that I see, I don't like. I'm like, this is it. This is what we and guys like a Duncan and a Robinson and complete player. I mean, the Spurs had so many great guys. There's one guy I'm blanking out his name right now because it's so early for me, I guess. He was the shooter extraordinaire on the Spurs, and I'm blanking out on his name. I'm ready to Google it right now because I want to get his name out my head. He was their primary shooter. I mean, he was like.
You talking about like Tony Parker or something?
No, I am not talking about him. I'm talking about the other guy. Oh,
with those Ginobili, I think.
Yeah. Manu. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, those guys, man. Let's talk about them.
Yeah,
these guys know how to play some ball.
Yeah.
These guys here that the guy I just named. I know people might love them because we're in the current era.
So here's my thing with AD. Here's my thing with AD. Right, is he should be top of the league kind of guy, right? Talent wise. The talent exists in that human. The problem is dude has just no dog in him at all. Like anytime he has to step up and be that guy, he comes up small. And, and anytime he has a big game, all of a sudden media goes, oh my God, he's the best in the league and all of this. It's like, yeah, can we see it for more than like 3 games? Right.
I can't give him that. I can't. I can't do it.
So it's things like that. Because he is a good defender and he is a good shooter on certain nights. And so, like, if he could put that together consistently, he could be an all-time great. But instead, he shrinks anytime that you have to put the chips in and really battle it out. He's just like, oh yeah, cool. I'm gonna call it good at halftime.
Man,
eat a glitzy and go home.
You got to make a note, man. We got to have an NBA episode because this. Sure. Write this down. Don't forget to add the Spurs to this conversation because we got to come back to this. We have to. We just must. But let's move forward. We're almost to the end of the show. But I think the reason why I hang out in the 90s, and I talk about it To anybody who wants to listen, I ain't ashamed to say it. I believe the 90s is the best era in basketball, at least.
Sure.
Baseball, I'm not sure. Maybe I had to do a little bit more research than that. I kind of feel the same with my baseball too.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Football, I say yes to football because I seen a couple of championships during that era too of my favorite teams. So that's why I'm kind of biased about that part too. But the reason why I think the NBA era is the best in the 90s, for a lot of these, you named one earlier. Talking about the physicality, the lack of flopping that we see right now.
Oh, man.
Any reason why no king should be flopping. I'm just saying. Back in those days, man, two brick walls crashing into each other. That's what it was about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was combat basketball.
More fouls today that never would have been called back then. The ref would let them play. Less 3-point shooting. People think that's cool because we get points. We shot 3 points. Yeah, but why are you shooting more 3-pointers now? My opinion, I think first off, the 3-point shooting is epically bad. I think from a number standpoint, it's probably historically bad, probably. Is it a fear of being fouled? Probably. A lazy attempt at getting points? Most definitely. Because I watched the playoffs this past year, this past season. Mm-hmm. And guys, and I'm not going to name anybody because I want to start going down that rabbit hole, but there's certain guys that were in the playoffs that don't shoot 3-pointers. I mean, they put their stats on the screen, efficiency-wise. They don't really do it.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, in key moments, they become a magical 3-point shooter. And they start shooting 0 for 9.
Oh, yeah.
1 for 11. I'm like, where'd you come from? Why you start doing that? It's lazy. That's my personal opinion. It's laziness. The 90s were great because guys would drive the lane. They didn't care about getting hit.
Yep.
They knew Bruce Bowen was down there. They didn't care. They would charge the basket and they would use 3-pointers when it was actually a wise move to make. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Playoff rivalry, like you said, the Bulls and the Pistons, the Knicks and the Heat with Mourning and Ewing. That stuff was epic, man. These guys played hard-nosed basketball. And I think anybody that was in that era, if you don't agree with that, you need to get a head checked.
Think of some of those.
It was amazing basketball.
Think of some of those battles between, like, the Sonics and the Jazz, right? Where you got Kemp and Malone beating it up down low. I mean,
Stockton, yeah, man.
Stockton, yeah. And, or even the Lakers from that era, right? I mean, you got you had big men going down and beating each other up under the basket. And that is not a thing. Now you have 7-foot tall guys hanging out around the 3-point arc.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, Durant's a good 3-point shooter, but it's not where you want to see a 7-footer be.
Like, he drive the lane too, though. I mean, I give him props that he don't try to avoid.
No. He'll still go down low, but I mean, when you have your tallest guys jacking it up from 3, you're not getting that offensive board.
I mean, here's a question to think about: the U.S. Dream Team, did they win this past? Did they win? Take the time to look it up, please. Did they win?
The last Olympics? Yeah, I think they did.
They did win?
Yeah, I think they did. It was the one before. I think they came in. They didn't. I think they were silver medal the one before, but the last one I believe they won.
I'm not. That's true. That's fine. We can verify it afterwards. But
yeah,
if they did win, how much did they win by? Because back in that time in the 90s, the Dream Team then they probably had like a 43, 44 point advantage every time they played somebody.
So
that speaks to me to the talent that they had available during that time. These guys are sports.
That also speaks to what the rest of the world's talent was, because you have a lot more European players in the NBA than you did then. So the NBA has
guys come out of there then. Deadlift, Shrimp, and them guys, they were on the European side. Them guys was incredible. I think Ginobili too. I don't think he played for the U.S., right? He played for somebody else.
No, for sure. But a lot of those teams only had one NBA player on those teams, whereas now they're more filling out with NBA-style talent. So the gap between the U.S. and other countries has shrank a little bit. The other thing is international basketball is still allowed to beat people up, and NBA players aren't used to that because they're not allowed to be physical anymore.
Allowed? We're gonna move on for that one
Now
real
everything's a
before I
foul.
get
Now
mad.
everything's a foul, right? Like you look at a guy wrong from the bench, somehow you're kicked out of the game and it's a foul.
Oh gosh. Well, the 90s, in my mind, the 90s were better. I mean, they had a championship monster at the top with the Bulls.
Yep.
Like I said, been getting retired, probably have 8 titles. They had something to fight for. There was an urgency in the way that they played basketball. And now I don't even see it. I ran into an interview. Some friend of mine's, they interviewed Charles Oakley, who's
cool.
my second favorite Knick, for the same reason I'm describing right now, because of his physicality and his willingness to do the dirty work. He was saying that right now what he's not seeing with the Knicks and with basketball in general is a hunger to win. He said he wasn't seeing that. He was saying that now
the Knicks haven't had that in a long time.
People are more concerned with getting their 30 points than doing the little thing, doing the dirty work is how he described it.
Yep.
And I think that's a big part of what I missed from the 90s. That's why I stay on that so much. But we're gonna jump over that one. Have a little quick game, and we're gonna go ahead and close out for today. All right, you ready?
Let's go.
Rapid fire questions from the 90s, bro. Are you ready? I'm gonna give you options. It's gonna be a little bit easier. This is how we're gonna end our show for today.
All right.
All right, ready? Let's go. All right. Best point guard, Gary Payton or John Stockton?
Ooh.
Yeah, baby.
I mean, I'm a Seattle guy, so I'm going to go with Gary Payton. But honestly, I would say Stockton is probably that guy.
Fair enough. Best TV show, Cosby Show or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Fresh Prince. Fresh Prince.
Best rapper, Biggie or Tupac?
Ooh. I mean,
he's only gonna get harder, so just you know.
Man, that one's tough. I'll roll with Pac. I'll roll with Pac.
Cool. Most dominant, Roger Clemens or Randy Johnson? This is fun.
I would be way more afraid to step in the batter's box against Randy Johnson because the end of his hand is halfway to the plate.
Oh, you stop it. So is that a Randy Johnson vote?
Yeah, I'll go with Randy.
A non-Mariner vote? Yeah, you know that was biased all the way. Knew you were gonna pick Randy Johnson.
No. I mean, he won more Cy Youngs away from the Mariners than he did with them. He actually got better when he got down to Arizona.
I don't even know why that was, but okay. Best enforcer, Ben Wallace or Rick Mahorn?
I'll go with Rick.
Yep. Best boy band, NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Wait, what was the first one?
NSYNC or Backstreet
Boys? Oh man, Backstreet Boys.
I think you sing a song. Did you mess around?
Yeah, I guess I actually wouldn't be able to tell the difference on who sang what. Like I would recognize the song, but I wouldn't know who sang it. But I guess I'd go Backstreet Boys.
Copy that. Worst Major League Baseball jerk, Milton Bradley or Albert Bell?
Oh man, I feel like they could raise the title together.
I know, but I'm gonna go with one myself. I have my own.
Milton Bradley.
That's my vote too.
Yeah.
Best DB, Deion Sanders or Rod Woodson?
You know, I would probably actually go with like I love Deion, but I think I'd actually go Woodson.
Actually, I did the same thing, man. We were on the same page with most of this stuff, man. I think I was different with the Biggie Tupac. I think I went a different route with that.
Oh, you went Biggie? All right.
I think I did, yeah. Dirtiest player. Dirtiest player in the 90s. Bill Laimbeer or Bruce Bowen? Historic, I think you had to pick one of them, but the other one really made me mad, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, Bruce Bowen probably.
Yeah, he's the one that they say is the worst, but I don't
know.
Best of the worst musically, MC Hammer or Vanilla Ice?
Oh, that's awesome. Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice.
Most influential wrestler, okay. The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold. Cheersing yourself with beers, man. Come on.
Throw a mud hole in you and walk it dry. Best cartoon, okay. Rugrats or Tiny Toons? Wow.
Oh, Tiny Toon Adventures, right? Yeah.
I love Bugs Bunny, so that was an easy one for me.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Greatest tennis player. Back to it again. Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer?
For me, I think it's Federer.
I forget who got the Grand Slam. I think he had the most Grand Slam, does he not?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Most dominant D-line guy. Derek Thomas or Bruce Smith? There you go. I'm right in your wheelhouse now, bro.
Yeah, and that one's tough because they were both dominant. I'll go with Derek Thomas, though.
Okay. I couldn't decide on that one. I was stuck on that one.
I mean, it's coin flip.
I can't say tie, so.
Yeah, no, it's a coin flip for sure. There's not a wrong answer there.
Those was it 4 championship? Not a championship run, but with the Bills.
Yeah, so it was 4 Super Bowl losses in a row.
He was there for all 4 of them, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Smith, but I'm not sure about that. Best rock band. Best rock band. Green Day or Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Oh, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I'm there too. Okay, last one. Best candy. Jawbreakers or Pop Rocks?
I mean, I guess if it's 90s, it'd be the original Pop Rocks. So I'll go that route. I'll go Pop Rocks.
I enjoyed those more. They didn't hurt my teeth. So
exactly.
A great show, brother. I appreciate it, man. So wherever you guys are today, however you're hearing, they call me Mr. U, the podcast, and listen to us and Football Talk with Bo. Thank you again for making us a part of your morning, your day, and your week. We're your weekly mirror check before you change the world. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, the Twitter. Thanks for joining our show. Have a great day. Coach out.
Have a great week, everybody.